Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com. Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to what's going to be, I think, a very quick but interesting episode of Past the Wire TV. We've got Chad Brown with us. Thank you so much, Chad, for coming on the show. I know you're pressed for time, so we'll talk fast like your horses run.
No problem.
All right. I want to start by talking a little bit about a horse named Miles D. And I'll tell you why. I think this has been, and I'm not one of those good crop, bad crop guys, but I think it's been a very competitive year for the 3-year-olds, and we've had some really nice 3-year-olds. And when you ran Miles D in the Curlin, in my mind, I said, he's got to be thinking a lot of talent and maybe Travers. And you won the Curlin, ran, I thought, very credible in the Travers to much more seasoned horses. I mean, essential quality, the 2-year-old champ. I think he ran a respectable race. Comes back, runs in that allowance race. I thought that it was the kind of race that would do him good because it looked like he had to work a little bit harder than maybe it looked like on paper he would coming out of the Travers. But I thought it was what he needed, and I think he's an under the radar, very, very good 3-year-old, late developing that might be an exciting 4-year-old. So just a couple of thoughts on him, and am I on target or am I crazy?
No, I think you read it right. This horse, we always thought a lot of this horse, and he, when he was 2, I entered him in a maiden race in the fall at Belmont, thinking, it's the fall and it's 7/8. He wants to run a mile, an 1/8 mile and a quarter at some point, but I didn't really want to sprint him 6, and he just missed Saratoga with a few minor things. So I got him going, and the horse drew the toughest maiden race I've maybe ever run in at Belmont in my life. I mean, all these horses were in there. That ended up being great horses. So, I mean, just go to his maiden race and look at the horses like Speaker's Corner was in there, and
right.
And Shug's horse that was on the Derby trail, one of the Derby favorites for a long time, and a couple other horses that won the Wood Memorial was in there, and I'm forgetting, but I mean, it was just a loaded, ridiculous race, and he came out of there with a small fracture in his shin, which really caught us off guard, and it threw us off everything because I thought he was our best chance for the Derby, really. So it took a lot of time to come back. And we're playing catch up in the summer, and you read it right. I thought he was a Travers horse, even though he lacked the experience. But he ran a good race in the Curlin, and then he ran another good race in the Travers. Just wasn't quite ready for it, and maybe he's just not as good as the top 2 finishers in there. They're quite good, but he's a horse that's coming along well bred. Talented horse from day one. And I do think his best days are ahead of him. In his last race, it was a good race for him. He got tested a bit, and he had to work hard to get there. He had every right to pack it in. And, on the turn, it looked like he was maybe be last. He just wasn't firing at all. But,
Right.
That horse is funny. He won't run into dirt very well, and he won't run inside a horse as well. We've seen that it works. And it was clear even in the Curlin when he narrowly got beat late. When he found himself in deep stretch, again, on the inside of a horse making the last run, he lost his momentum a little bit. And we had a plan going into that race in the Travers to try to keep him clear if we could. He's a funny horse. And I think that's what it really was in that allowance race. He just was not healing the kickback. And that's what John Valesquez had said to us too. He just completely dropped the bridle until he got him out in the center of the track, cracked him a couple of times, and then he jumped in the bit again. And really, he came on like a turf horse, really, his last quarter. And he got there. He showed a lot. Even though he didn't beat a high-quality field, he showed me a lot in his last quarter mile that he's a rail race horse, and he has the ability to finish when he's clear of all the kickback.
Interesting. And any idea where he might wind up stake-wise down the road? Anything on the radar?
Yeah, we were thinking about this race as a prep for the Discovery if he ran well, and I think that makes sense to get him back out at a mile and 1/8 at Aqueduct before we head south, and let's see how he does there, and then take him to Florida and kind of map out a meaningful campaign next year to see, how far he can go.
Interesting. I'm very interested in something about the Breeders' Cup with one of your horses, and I'll tell you, there have been some phenomenal Breeders' Cup training feats. So some of them of yours, and Lady Eli's second coming back from the laminitis would certainly be one of them. I mean that was incredible. Mandela's 4-win day. Beholder's campaign the year she beat Songbird, how she was pointed. I want to talk about domestic spending because I'm fascinated by something. You've had great success in Arlington, and I know they called it the Mr. D this year, and no disrespect to Mr. D whatsoever, but it's still the Arlington Million as far as I'm concerned. When he ran in the Arlington Million, on paper, I thought he was much the best in it. Since early in the year, I thought he was the best grass horse in America for sure. And I thought that the Arlington Million would kind of validate that. And I don't think it didn't. I think it did, but he didn't win. He got wired by an only speed, didn't play his way that day. But here's what fascinates me. You didn't run him back, and you're going for the Breeders' Cup turf. So he's off since that race, and he's also going 1.5 miles for the first time. So to me, if he were to win, it would be one of those Breeders' Cup training feats that's just one for the record book. So what is it about him and your thought process that made you take this gutsy, I got to say, a gutsy route to the Breeders' Cup turf?
It's a good question. So a couple answers. Number one, we've done it already with bricks and mortar. Now, right. And bricks and mortar had a bigger body of work, probably, I think, for sure, not I think, during the course of the year, more foundation maybe to do it. But nevertheless, he hadn't run since Arlington. He had never been 1.5 miles. And up until 3 weeks before the race, I was debating between the mile and the 1.5 miles. And then it just hit me one day watching him train. This horse could definitely go 1.5 miles. So we've already done it. So sort of have the blueprint, and I think this horse is as good as bricks and mortar. His numbers would certainly say he is. His career's gone a little differently, but he doesn't have horse of the year on the line in an undefeated year. But he's run as fast. He ran faster than he did in the Manhattan, actually, on the sheets. So this horse is very fast. I feel confident, that when I have the horse, and I definitely have the team. And I have the experience back when I worked, obviously, with Frankel till now. I have the confidence and experience to bring a horse off a layoff if they're good like that, especially on the turf. So I'm not afraid of it at all. A lot depends when you're doing that, what track you're racing on as well. So when I'm going to San Anita or Del Mar, a track like that, where I'm probably going to get firm turf on the stretch out, off a layoff, those little things matter to me when I'm trying to use my imagination to say, okay, this is the layoff from here to here. This is the distance increase, and this is the caliber of horse. This is how fast you're capable of running. This is a running style, and this is likely the conditions I'm going to get. What kind of turf I'm going to get. What type of pace I'll probably get on a full field, big time race like this. And if I can sort of connect all those dots, then I'll try and do it with confidence. If everything is not lining up the right way, then I'll say, this just isn't possible to do. So that's how I approach it. And with this horse, I'm very confident. I have the horse ready. I think the horse has done great cooperating, and my team's done a good job. And if the conditions are right, and as long as he doesn't draw an unfortunate post or have some unexpected pace scenario or something like that, the horse should run his race. And if he gets a good trip, he's going to be right there.
Do you think that he can go forward at the 1.5 miles, that could actually move him forward a little bit going that extra distance?
I'm not sure he can move forward, but if he runs his race in the Manhattan, then they're all running for second. I can tell you that. There's no possible way anyone can run faster. I don't care where they're coming from or what they've done or who trains them. So that's as fast as you can run for a turf horse in this country, for sure. So if he runs the race in the Manhattan back and gets a seam turning for home, that's going to be the outcome.
Interesting. Last question, I'll let you go. I know it's tough time schedule for everybody, but I'm curious about another one of your horses, Dunbar Road. Dunbar Road is a horse that I've followed her entire career. I was there when she ran at Gulfstream, and you were very aggressive with her. I think off her win run in the stake, and I've been high on her whole career. And when she came back this year, there were a couple of spots I thought she would win. I thought her last two races, chasing Latruska, were better than they looked on paper. When you watched her, one of the races looked like she was actually going to win for a minute, but she was kind of wide, and then just didn't get there. And the other time, Latruska just got the trip, and she would have been impossible to catch. The Breeders' Cup sets up a little different. Looks like Latruska is going to get challenged early, and really have to run early. And you've got that other closer in there that looks good too. But I'm intrigued by Dunbar Road. You're not backing off on her. You're going after Latruska again. Is there something you see in her that I'm reading right, that she's got a big one in her, and we're just hoping to get it out of her on the right day?
I think you're on the right course there too. As far as a horse sitting on a big race, whether she can win or not against a true champion horse, we'll see. Dunbar Road has had a tough go of it a bit since she's had her 3-year-old year where she won the Alabama and stuff. She's had two different problems with her airway, unfortunately, and one required a surgery to repair it, and it came back great. Patty Hogan twice has taken this horse in, and she's so talented. Of an airway specialist, amongst other things. I mean, she does everything. But with us, with this horse's airway, she really came through and gave us a lot of good treatment and advice along the way. So, the horse came back and ended up really having a good second half of the year last year, and almost was in the photo for the Breeders' Cup last year. I mean, she only got beat a couple lengths, and she was totally stuffed at the quarter pole going inside. She had to take up and go around. It was a really bad trip, actually. So I'm not going to say she definitely would have won, because the winner, Monterey Girl, is such a fighter. I mean, you never know what they're going to do or how much they have left in the tank if they get eyeballed. So I'm not going to say that, but I know that she would have drawn next to her at some point. So here nor there, it's racing. And then this year she got another problem with her airway, and it was more of an infection in her airway, and it was very complicated. And actually, I got to the point in the summer where I advised Mr. Brandt, you should think about maybe retiring the horse.
Really?
And I have to give credit. He said, no, let's go on a little further and see if we can get this thing right, because we sort of plateaued a bit with her progress. And sure enough, he was right. And she went in as a long shot to that race at Saratoga, Preslenson, and to my surprise, really ran super, and then came out of the race much improved with her scopes and such. And his gut feeling, he's a great horseman, Mr. Van, was right that this was going to come around with some time. And here we are. She's scoping very well now. And she sort of defied logic, even the vets and the surgeons and everyone, how this thing could naturally in time just come around and look good again. And she's training super. And she's going to need a little pace help. We need someone to tackle Latruska early, like you said, and really test her. Because when left to do her own thing, I think everyone would be running for second against her.
Interesting. Last question. I know I said that was the last one, but last one I'll ask you, and it's more of a general one. The track at Del Mar, a lot of people talk about it being a funny track, maybe because it's close to the water and the humidity changes during the day. And what's your take on the main track at Del Mar? Is it as quirky as people think? Is it going to be a factor?
Yeah. So my first answer would be that is I'm not the person to ask, because I don't race out there much, particularly on the dirt.
I get it.
I can tell you this from my first trip at the Breeders' Cup there, when I did run on the dirt, and we had some horses really run well on the dirt. I mean, with Good Magic winning, Karina Mia. I mean, actually, so the track at Del Mar around that time for that Breeders' Cup day, at least, or that weekend. Remember, the inside was really not the place to be. It was quite deep down there, and the outside seemed to be a little better. the unfortunate trip in the stretch of Karina Mia and the Philly Mare Sprint actually helped us in the juvenile the next race, because Castellano was on Karina Mia, I believe, and in the critical part of the stretch, he decided to dive inside to pass a horse, and she lost all her momentum there. And he came back and he told me that, like, when I went back down inside, it was like quicksand down there, and she totally stopped her run. I regret it. And unfortunately, she got beat. I think if she had gone outside that race, she could have won. Well, the next race in the paddock, I shared that story with Jose Ortiz, and I said, whatever you do, when you get to that point, you go the other way on the center of the track. Now, he dusted the field anyway by many, but I wouldn't want to find out if he went inside what would have happened. So the track did play a little weird. That was years ago, and I haven't run the dirt there. So I definitely would not be the person to ask. And I'm going to be asking the same questions as you are to people that are there when I hit the town. On the turf, I've always found Del Mar to be very fair. Won plenty of grade ones there, plenty of grade escapes there. Just like Santa Anita, on the lead, mid-pack, and from dead last, with all sorts of pace scenarios in between. So I feel like it's a very fair turf course. I love taking my horses there. We have tremendous success because I can trust how they're going to run. And in fairness, when I come in to a big race weekend at Del Mar, whether it's Breeders' Cup or Matriarch Weekend or any other race, and people like, what is Turf Brigade just comes off the plane and they win everything. Well, I'm able to hand pick what I put on the plane. I'm not running my whole stable there, or it would be so dominant, you know? I'm just picking what I know from my experience racing in Southern California turf tracks, what's going to fit and what's going to work. And I've been able to just hand pick through the years. I have the horses that are good enough to do it and have them prepared from home to just kind of cherry pick spots. And it's worked out at a high percentage.
That's interesting stuff. And Chad, thank you so much. I'm not going to take any more of your time. I know your schedule's tight. A lot going on. I wish you a great Breeders' Cup, and I hope to be next week writing an article about an unbelievable training feat for Breeders' Cup history. And I think it's a really gutsy move, and I hope things work out. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. Thanks. Take care. Anytime.
Okay. Ciao.
Thank you.
The level of racing that he's achieved is extremely rare. Anybody who's witnessed Matoli running sees a level of ability that doesn't come along that often.
Matoli's a monster! Matoli wins the sprint! Oh, what a horse he is! Matoli! He did it again! Wins the mid-mile!
The only thing to be better than one Matoli's a few Matolis.
The mighty Matoli, who won the Fargo by 3.5 lengths, the new stakes record.
Nobody does it better.